What is up, everyone? Welcome back to our lawn, and today we are here to talk about that guy right there, but not just that guy right there, also my experience in whole with robot mowers in general. I'm going to speak to my first about 6 months of the growing season. I got this back in August of last year, so we had August through about November. It's chasing me. It's shy. He doesn't want me to talk about him. And so he would have gone August to about November, and then I got him back out. And when I say him, that's Mo Willems, beloved child author, or Moby-Wan Kenobi, Maurice Jones-Drew, pick your favorite, Mowgli. But so August to November, and then I got him back out early April through now today is about mid-May somewhere. And so what we're going to talk about today is specifically the features of the Sunseeker Orion X7, my experience with it and all of its operating procedures, its app, etc. And then also my experiences with having a lawnmower take care of all the generically maintained portions of my yard. Going to speak to both the advantages and some of the disadvantages that I've seen so far. And I did get a couple questions from subscribers, so I want to answer those directly as well. We'll do that at the end. And so let's first talk about the Sunseeker and the mower that I purchased. So it is the X7, the regular one, not the Plus, rated to be able to cover 3/4 of an acre in total mowable square feet. And at the time of purchase and still today, costs $2,400. I don't know exactly how many zones. I'll put how many zones you can select and all of that on screen. Sunseeker allows you to cut anywhere from 0.8 of an inch all the way up to 4 inches, which is one of the wider margins that I've seen. I know like the Luby either has two different sets of mowers, one that's a lower height, one that's a higher height. And then there are a number of settings on how you want the lawnmower to mow any of the areas. So I use what is called traceless, but basically that just means every time it mows a section of the yard, it's going to do it in a different direction from the time it went last time. You can also set a custom direction. You can also just let it decide what the most efficient way to cut the yard is, that shape of yard is for itself. However, that doesn't mean it's going to go exactly the same way every time, and with how accurate it is, it means it's going to put the wheel tracks in exactly the same spot every time. I'm not interested in that. You can also pick any of the disc cutter speeds, so the little discs that have the blades on it, how fast those spin. Obviously the slower setting is going to be better for battery life, but for me, I want as good of a cut quality as I can get, so I'm choosing the highest setting. There's also 3 speed settings of how fast you want it to mow, as well as 3 settings for how much you want it to overlap. So I use the normal speed and the normal overlap. So what that means is it's slow, and then it will cover just a little bit less than half of its path. So each time it goes, the wheel sets just a little bit over and it cuts it again. So it's doing everything, every part of the yard almost exactly twice. My experience in general with this mower has been fantastic. It is wonderful to not have to worry about cutting. It's saving me anywhere in the neighborhood of probably 2 hours a week. That frees up my time to spray, to mow the practice facility, to do some of the aeration projects, things like that I need to do back there. Frees up a lot more time for lawn maintenance instead of spending that time mowing. And to me, that is a huge deal because the time that I have is extremely limited. And if I need to not miss a plant growth regulator window, not miss a fungicide window, not miss anything, I'm going to have maybe 2 hours on any given week to do this. And if I have to spend all that time mowing, I'm going to miss a lot of the times when I need to do applications. So for me, it makes a huge difference, and I'm never going back to being responsible for myself mowing all the main parts of the yard. With this particular mower, I have found it to be extremely accurate from a navigation perspective. The lines are laser straight. It has never left or missed or gotten lost in my property. Again, the sky is fairly open, but I do get some dense trees back in the corner back there where it's got to cut. And as you saw just over there where we did the introduction of the video, some reasonably dense tree cover. And it also looks through my house and through my garage, as the RTK is back over there, and it is currently now back over there, as well as the front yards on the other side of the house. All that, we have had no RTK GPS signal issues at any point in my property. Now, if you do have a very densely wooded area that you can't get a good spot for the RTK, robot mowers, the GPS units may not be for you, as they can have some issues with signals if you start to get them in and around trees and in and around structures. Also, it has had no functionality issues to this point. Nothing has broken, nothing has caused me any issues. Like I said, it hasn't gotten lost, it hasn't dropped itself into a landscape bed or whatever. And again, it is perfectly maintained. All parts of my yard that aren't the practice facility behind me now for about 6 months. And I am extremely happy with the fact that I have not had to do that. Another advantage of a robot versus a regular rotary is we can get that height of cut down lower because again, the disc is about 6-7 inches. It's not having to cover as wide of an area where a wheel dips in and now we're scalping, where with my old 48-inch mower, I couldn't really go below 2.5 inches. With my now Honda rotary mower, I can maybe get to 2 before I start to have issues. Currently, it's maintaining the front and backyard at 1.4 inches. and it's maintaining the side yard at 1 inch currently. And we really don't have a lot of scalping issues, no problems like that. So generally speaking, my experience with the Sunseeker specifically, and my kind of experience with robot mowers in general, wonderful, no complaints. I am never, ever, ever going back to a point in time where I have to be responsible for maintaining the parts of my yard that aren't practice facility when it comes to mowing. But it's not all sunshine and roses, so let me talk to some of the things that aren't an issue for me, but might be an issue for you, and something that you're going to want to consider. The first issue, and while I said that the GPS is extremely accurate, and it is, I didn't want to fight with my live edge beds and having to come and rescue the mower because it dropped a wheel in here and it gets stuck, and now somebody needs to be at my house and come lift him back out of the landscape beds. And so because of that, I mapped all of my yards where I have, again, these live edge beds where it drops down. I have it mapped to go about 6 inches to a foot off of that bed. What's up, Gus? Off of that bed, so it only comes to about right there, so that I am never in any risk of it falling into the landscape bed. But what that does mean is I do have a taller perimeter around the whole landscaping area, and it means that I have to come back through with my rotary mower first and then with the string trimmer to clean up those edges. Now, to me, that doesn't bother me at all. It's not something I care about. I have all sorts of room that the last foot or so of my yard gets a little shaggy here and there, and I got to run the rotary around it. Doesn't bother me at all. I have to trim parts of my yard anyway. I'm gonna have to trim everything all the time anyway. It's not doing that for me. So the fact that I have to spend, 10 minutes and run my rotary mower around all the edges of the property, not an issue for me. Another thing, and while I have quite a bit of grade up here in the front, I don't know if I can give you a sense of that, but if I come down here, that is about 3 feet below me. That's about 1.5 feet over the top of my head. So I have a fair bit of slope. It has no issues with any of that. And it does get pretty steep the further we go down towards my driveway. Not an issue, never a concern with slope, nothing like that. What it does have issues with is stuff like this. So I originally hoped that it would either be able to navigate across this little dip here where all my gutters come out, or if it got stuck that it would learn, hey, I shouldn't go there anymore, and it would stop trying to go cut this little circle. Never did. It got stuck here 3-4 times before I eventually put a no-go zone. So as you can see where it's cutting, where this grass is longer around, I basically said, you can come down here, you can adjust the map, you drive it around this little circle, and the map saves and restores the fact that, hey, I can't go there. It's not safe for me there. Don't cut there. And that solved the issue. Now I just got a string trimmer on that. Again, not a concern. Another place we come here is the ditch in the front of my yard, which you will see stops mowing right there. And that is because while here, as we dip down into the ditch, I'm gonna say I have at least their max grade, if not even more. And again, it cuts this no problem. It does this without any issue. What was the issue is there's a little V right down in there that's pretty steep, and depending on the angle it was mowing at, depending on how it got there, it would again get stuck and kind of beach itself on its bumpers right there. So now again, this is another area where I take my 10 minutes every couple weeks and I have to cut this up over here with my rotary mower to finish up, because again, it will get, if I let it cross this little gap right there, it will sometimes get stuck, so I don't worry about that or mess with that anymore. So again, those things don't bother me. But if you're somebody that, if I'm gonna have to run my mower around anyway, I'm just gonna mow, this is stupid, I don't wanna buy it. And that's fine. For me, it doesn't bother me. And again, to be able to cover, the mower at my home is managing 17,000, 18,000 square feet, and I never have to deal with it. If we're gonna talk about cut quality, it's decent, but you really have to stay on top of making sure that the discs are clean so that the blades can spin and move freely on the surface, and that they're sharp. So you get razor blades, basically. They're a thicker, beefier razor blade, which is perfectly fine. Really sharp to begin with, but they dull fairly quickly. So you do have to be staying on top of making sure the deck's clean, making sure everything underneath is clean so that it's functioning as intended, and then changing those out. I'm going to change them out probably every 3-4 weeks or so to make sure that they're staying sharp and we maintain a good cut quality. And so you get a hodgepodge of whether cut quality is good or not. So right through here, if we look at that blade specifically, pretty good. A little bit frayed, but okay. But then we can come to other places back here. So I got seed heads growing up, so there's some more coarse kind of material that it's having to cut through. And if we come down in here, some of this is pretty darn frayed if we look at it. So I'm going to say, just depending on how meticulous you are with your sharpening of the blades in your rotary mower and how much you care, cut quality to me is good enough, but it is not fantastic. One of the features and something they always talk about is it is very quiet. So I can stand here and you can listen to it and we can talk about it. Very quiet, noise not an issue. And here you got obstacle avoidance. I've never told it that tree is there. It sees it, it adjusts, it makes its way, and it'll navigate and figure out how best to go around it to mow through it. Apparently that's in reverse right now. I'm not going to act like I understand how it makes decisions, but it figures it out independent of me, and that's not an issue. Just pick something up that it's flinging around underneath there. Which brings me to the last mowing thing. Is the only time now, the biggest issue and the thing that happens most often for me is it gets a stick stuck up underneath that jams itself into one of the discs, at which point it calls for help and it stops mowing and it stops moving until somebody comes, frees the stick from the cutting disc, tells it to go again, at which point it will resume where it left off. The last thing to speak to is time and battery life. So this is, again, intended for 3/4 of an acre. It has what I believe to be a 5 amp hour battery, and I will put up a different number if that's incorrect, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. And so what I usually get is, if the blades are sharp and the lawn has been maintained, I'll get anywhere from 40 to 55 minutes of mowing time on a charge, at which point it will return itself back to the base. And it is anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes on the base to recharge, and then it automatically resumes its mowing after that. And so all my zones are set up to cut 3 times a week, and the main areas start at 10 a.m. and that schedule typically runs until 3 in the afternoon. And in that 5-hour window, it is always done mowing unless there's some sort of rain delay or there's some other issue that happens that causes some delay. And so again, those are about 7,000 square feet. If it does it in two charges, in 2 units of charge, that takes about 2.5 hours. A lot of the times now it has to go out a third time and just clean up. So most of the time it's cutting about, I'm gonna say 1,500 square feet per hour, give or take. And now I've seen people complain about that, like, it's so slow, it takes it forever to mow, it takes it forever to do these things, to which I ask a very serious question. A process that can cut your yard realistically 7 days a week, but for me 3 days a week, on 18,000 square feet, that requires exactly 0 minutes of your time or attention, who cares how long it takes? Again, that's my take, my opinion. That's how I view the speed of this thing mowing the lawn. But know that it is slow, and if it's something going to bother you, that it takes a period of time for it to work and for it to do it, know that exists, and maybe that's something that bothers you. The only other thing that's maybe a downfall or something that's maybe not perfect is because unless you have like the yucca, I don't know how you're supposed to say it, from Mammotion, or if there are other ones that I don't know about that will sweep in the fall, in the spring, one stick. You know, I had to run my rotary over my backyard because I had so many sticks that had fallen. You know, I still need the rotary as vacuum, so when that's be that leaves in the fall or just sticks throughout the year, or my ash trees drop these stupid little like leaves or like little flower petals. I don't know if you can see them. They're easier to see back in the practice facility. So like if I need a vacuum, I still need the rotary mower for that. It's not going to eliminate you running a mower around your yard, period. And the last thing is, you can see I have striped my backyard because I'm due to spray some fungicides and insecticide back here. And so if you're somebody that really takes striping a lawn seriously, the robot, other than again the Luba, don't do that. There's no striping from the robot. It does not do that. What I did here is I ran my greens mower over this in order to get the stripes, and I really just used those is because those are my markers for when I spray. So then you could have seen when we were up in the front section there, I got a spray weed killer up there. As you can tell, it's almost exclusively weeds up there. So I'll run my one of my greens mowers, so the orange one in this case, back and forth over it just to give me stripes. Also, it's just, I do like the look of a lawn that's striped up. So again, the robot's not going to do that for you. If you're somebody that really cares about that, every 2-3 weeks, you're going to have to redefine the stripes with your rotary mower just to have that look if it's something that you want. And so like I said, I would address questions at the end of the video. So here we are. I got a question specifically about what happens if 2 parts of my yard are separated by a mulch bed. So I'll try to catch it crossing my driveway here when it finishes up the side yard. So again, you set these corridors up. So long as there's at least a gap that is a little bit wider than the robot mower through that mulch bed, and you don't have a live edge or some sort of other curbing or border that's going to prevent it from driving over it, it will go straight through that mulch bed. You can set up your zone on one side, your zone on the other side, and then you set the schedule and tell it when you want it to mow. And it will go right straight through there, again, so long as it has a path. You could also do something where you, like, I don't know, build a little ramp if you have live edge beds and there's nowhere else for it to go. I also brought up, like, if you can really make that corridor go anywhere you want. You map it in the same way that you map the perimeters of the property. And then one of the other questions that I got was just my general take, my general opinion of having a robot mower. I think I've made that fairly clear to this point. I absolutely love it. I'm never going going back. I couldn't recommend this highly enough. And if you have a smaller yard, you can get some of the smaller models. Those are starting to become near prices of, you know, some of them might even be cheaper than something like a Time Master. And they're starting to get down towards, as things like super recyclers, as some of these Honda mowers are now $700, $800, and $900. You know, the Milwaukee battery mowers like $1,200, $1,300. Sunseeker makes a smaller model now that I believe is down to as cheap as $1,300, $1,400. And again, they're all GPS. You don't have to bury any wires. You don't have to do anything like that. Also, I'm talking to Sunseeker specifically because that's the one I bought. I don't have any relationship ties, any sort of anything with any of these manufacturers. This is money that I've spent myself and opinions that are of my own accord. And then also, just as a joke, I was asked if this means that I get rid of some of the lawn mowers. Yes, I actually have sold one of my greens mowers, as I was using the third one to maintain some shorter cut areas of the yard that now the robot's taking care of. It also allowed me to sell the 48-inch hydraulic walk behind that I had before. The sale of both of those got me to within, like, I think I only ended up being net like $400 or $500 on the robot purchase, so that was a nice touch as well. That's a lie, I was net $1,000. And so there we go. That's everything I can think of, at least off the cuff, on the robot mower. Again, I'm going to continue as time goes on to give you my experience. Eventually things might break, and what limited experience I've had with customer support so far has been good. However, as things break, as I need that sort of assistance, I'll bring you up to speed probably once or twice a year with this mower on my experience with it, any issues, any things that start to arise, what happens with the battery life over time, all of that stuff. And again, if there's something I didn't cover that you have a specific question on, I'll be happy to respond to those in the comments, as well as I'll kind of include all those in the back of my mind as I'm making videos going forward into the future. So as always, I thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you're a beginner to lawn care. I am now going to, as this video ends, go spray weeds in my side yard as a part of my beginner lawn care program. And that's something I put together for beginners to be as cheap and as easy as possible, so you can follow along to that. If you're somebody that's interested in having a putting green in your backyard and how to maintain that, I have content on what I'm doing back there. All of those things you can find here on this channel. I'm always happy to talk to you. Any questions, anything I can help with. Again, I just really appreciate you all. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.